Today, over 1 billion children in the world live in poverty. At Help Heal Humanity, our goal is to connect children in need with people like you who want to make a difference. Our student sponsorship program helps provide children with the necessities for a healthy and successful start to life. When you sponsor a student, you're not only giving them the gift of education, you're giving them the best chance for a brighter future. 100% of your donation supports the tuition fees, uniforms, textbook, and school supplies needed to thrive in a safe and healthy learning environment. Sponsor a student now and be the catalyst for their brighter future.
When you do nothing, nothing happens. Best time to take action is now.
This is the time to work on you and your business.
So I've created a group,
An online academy for professionals and entrepreneurs. Power Partners will help you
to start helping yourself.
Helped me change my life and my business.
Not a Toastmasters, it's not a BNI, it's not any of these, but it is. So it's all this stuff in one place.
Get the results that you deserve right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's make it happen.
see you in Power Partners.
offices and, being on the assembly line, what we're really doing is putting in hundreds of hours into the people on the streets who need us. And they need us in a way that none of us will ever understand. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been on the grounds every day. They know we're coming today, they know we're coming tomorrow, and they look forward to seeing us because we're the one little bit of hope that they have to have a warm meal in their bellies and to know that somebody in the world is actually caring for them and loving them. And without people like you showing up today to give your time, your energy, and your spirit, none of this is possible. So I want to really say thank you to everyone, because what we're doing here today may seem small, but it's actually really, really big, and it's impacting hundreds and thousands of families. So I thank you, I love you, I look forward to doing this with you today. My name is Serena Buffalino, and I am the founder of Help Heal Humanity. Help Heal Humanity is a charity that is focused on unconditional giving, love, and support to some of the most vulnerable communities in the world.
Testing, testing. Do you hear me now? Okay, that's good. Okay. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Technical problems. This is my new studio. I'm going to be doing I was trying to do this gracefully, but unfortunately, this is my new studio. Literally, I'm going to be able to this is what I teach my classes in all over the world. I'm going to be able to do laboratory experiments now, different cam shoots. So this is the first time I'm going to get a chance that I'm doing this. So first of all, this is the example of why it's so important to be able to tell your story, because obviously we're behind, I'm behind, but because what I have to say isn't a practice script, I'm not sitting here looking at notes saying, oh, what do I say next? Or I'm off. It comes from the heart. And one of the things that I want to do in this program, because I'm a Toastmaster, because of what happened to me and how I evolved, as I always say, the most important thing that you can ever do in your life is tell a story. Barbara, let's see if you can bring up my screen now, because you probably couldn't hear me. Okay, thank you. So let's just move this right on along here. Let's go to the next. Let's see if I can work the next slide. Here we go. From here to Barbara, just give me the next slide, please. So as I was saying, in 3 days, I am going to be doing, next slide, the biggest speech of my life. December 17th, 2022, I'm going to be doing the biggest speech of my life. When I go like this, Barbara, just next slide. And I'm going to be speaking into the GSA. The GSA is the Global Strategic Alliance for India. Okay, and it's a completely international organization working between India and the United States and all over the world. And on the 15th, 16th, 17th of December, they're going to be doing their global expo. And it's their theme is made for India, made for the world. And it's incredible just to have an opportunity to do this. They're going to have everything there. Bollywood is going to be there. As I was saying, you couldn't hear me. Bollywood makes Hollywood look like nothing. Bollywood makes like 1,000 films a year versus Hollywood's 200-300, something like that. Next slide. They're going to have technology there. They're going to have just a whole lot of spirituality. spirituality, metaphysical. We're talking about the chants of India, the music, the metaphysical music and chants of India. They're going to be there. Some of the best people in India in that profession. Next slide. They're going to have people doing metaphysical, doing yoga, things like this. Next slide. You're going to feel like you're in India. If you decide to come, and I put on my Facebook post free tickets that they're giving people who want to come. Next slide. And so they're going to have technology there. They're going to have Hollywood there. They're going to have different industries there. They're going to have spiritual things going there. They're going to have different education sections. Next slide. They're going to have clothing and textiles. This is truly a coming out party for India. Next slide. And I get a chance to be a part of the education sector of this event. And they have it each day. I'm going to be doing the last day. I'm closing it out. And what they want me to do is to tell a story. Next slide. And my topic is the importance of STEM in education. And the program is going to be filmed by this media company called Global Eye Media, and they service literally, next slide, they service literally over 33 million households, not even just people, households in India, Southwest Asia, and all over the United States. Next slide. And what makes this event so incredible for me, not just even the fact that I'm doing it, and as you saw those faces, I know I went through quick, but I'm literally the only African-American, at least male, that I've seen there. So no pressure on me whatsoever. But this is also the 30th anniversary, December 15th through the 17th from 1992, was when I realized that I was homeless. I was homeless. And people think about homelessness like I said in my speech in 2009, next slide, that homelessness just doesn't happen. It kind of comes as a perfect storm. And it was on a Tuesday. I remember that. And for the reason I remember that is for years, Tuesdays used to bother me. And I didn't understand why until I looked back and I realized that December 15th was on a Tuesday. And I was already homeless, but on that day, I remember walking down Michigan Avenue and realizing that I had no options. This was it. I was that word that used to be over there. Now I'm that person. I'm homeless. Next slide. So the question is, how? How did I get from being homeless for a year? In fact, the weather that's going on here in Chicago now, they talk about storms of weather. That's what was going on that week. I was free. Oh my God. I remember being so cold. I don't even know how I survived. I think about it now. But the question people ask me, or they don't ask me, but they want to ask me is how? And I really tell them all the time, but they don't realize it. Next slide. It's how did I go from this? This is this little skinny kid with the big ears, still got those ears. I had hair, I had eyebrows. How did that skinny kid and my boy Don Allen, him and I, we went to Jamaica High School together, boot camp together, and we're still friends today. That's really, really cool. Next slide. How did I go from the Marine Corps to the Pacific Gardens mission? That's where I was homeless. Literally, that's the newer building. I was in an older building that I didn't even want to scare you on how those buildings look, but that's the newest Pacific Gardens mission where I stayed at. Next slide. And going from there to literally having a congressman, give me a congressional global Oscar for being the teacher of the year. So how did I go from that person homeless 30 years ago to now doing a global presentation? Next slide. It's all about, it's what I want to do is it's about telling a story. And what today theme of this class, this episode is today, is to let people know that it's possible. It's possible to become whatever you want to become. Next slide. It's about telling a story. I'm going to keep saying that until my last breath. The most greatest thing that you can ever do in your life is to tell a story. Next slide. Because a story, as I say, week after week after week, is who you are, is how you got there. What of all the things that you had to endure, overcome, see, avoid, all those things, that's your story. That's who you are. That is the person. And as I say all the time, thank you, Barbara knows me so well. I didn't even ask for the next slide. Nothing has value without a story. Nothing. Think about it. Nothing has value without a story. So when you discover the value of your own story, you see the world in a whole completely different way. And part of this episode is appreciation. Just appreciation for me being where I'm at today. And I just wanted you to understand the similarities between gemstones and people, and how the way we look at gemstones, if you took that same concept and look at yourself, then you would understand how it's about a story. Next slide. So turquoise. There's 3 stones for December. Turquoise is one of them. Okay. Now, turquoise on a metaphysical level is a stone that represents wholeness. It represents increased communication and spiritual advance. I mean, next slide. Turquoise is the original gemstone. Turquoise was the first mined gemstone. Turquoise was found in 5000 BC. In fact, by the time they got to 2000 BC, there were several Egyptian mines that were all depleted from turquoise. People understood turquoise, not just when people in America think about turquoise, they always think about Native Americans. Turquoise was everywhere. I mean, whole civilizations, Persia, which is Syria now, Egypt, places in Latin America, Southwestern Indians, thousands of years, 2,000 years ago, had turquoise. So the question is, next question. So the next slide. So when you, in Tibet, they considered turquoise a sentient being, meaning that gemstone had feeling. It was aware of what was going on. It had senses, a sentient being. Remember I told you in South America, they felt like their gods lived in emeralds? Well, Tibet, their turquoise was sentient beings. Next slide. And when you understand, so the question is, how did this gemstone have that type of awareness, where it was a stone that represented wholeness? Next slide. Wholeness. It represented increased communication. Who made that determination? Who said it? Who said? Was there some court that just said, now we're going to deem this is the international meaning of turquoise? Who thinks that turquoise should be a stone of communication? There was none of that. Next slide. There was no court. There was no group of people that made that decision. And what you have to really understand is that was the decision that was made thousands of years ago. Before we had microscopes and refractometers, they just understood it. So the question is, how? How did they make that decision? Next slide. That turquoise was going to be, that stone was going to be a stone of wholeness. That when you wore that stone in early Victorian age, turquoise was the stone. How did people from all walks of life, all countries, all races, all religions respected that stone? Next slide. It was a story. They told a story, Slow. They told a story. Someone told a story that said that stone represents that. And the question is, when you realize that this book here, the Book of Stones, This book is telling stories about stones, the way people felt about stones. Next slide. For thousands of years. So how is that stone 5,000 years later have that represent that? And I'm not even into it like I have lots of friends who are true metaphysicians. I'm a babe in it in comparison to other people. But how do those people speak about that stone as a stone of wholeness, a stone of communication, a stone of spiritual expansion? Somebody told them a story. And if you understand that all that belief in that stone came from a story, then you have to ask yourself a question. Why can't you apply that same concept to you? And if you apply that same concept of telling your story, of understanding your story, then it's possible for you to be anything you want to be. Think about it. It's a story. Someone said this gemstone called turquoise represents this. Why can't someone say, fill in the blank, your name represents this? A good mom, a wonderful teacher, a good office manager, whatever. Next slide. There's another gemstone for December, zircon. Next slide. Zircon is, now when you think about, now let me just get you to understand, zircon is not cubic zirconia. Two different gemstones, two different minerals. One is man-made, cubic zirconia, and one is natural. Cubic zirconia is basically a zircon oxide, whereas zircon is a zirconium silicate, two different gemstones. But zircon is 4.5 billion years old. So zircon has been here since the earth formed. Next slide. Zircon comes in a variety of different colors. So what people think about zircon is the stimulation of all the chakras. So there's 7 chakras, and I'm not going to quote them because I don't know them that well. Okay, but there's people in this audience who knows all of the chakras, what they do. What I'm saying is that gemstone zircon represents stimulation of all the chakras. It increased life force. Think about it. Someone said that this stone, don't hold, stay. That this stone that you're looking at right now, which is the color most people think about zircon, that stone, that color in blue, represents and can help you achieve an increased life force. Wow. Grounding. So one of the things that zircon does is zircon helps you, the things that you think about or the things that you bring about. Why does that sound familiar? What's that book called? Oh yeah, As a Man Thinketh, which was a 19th century book. Zircon has been around for the beginning of time. So the question, next slide. So the question is, how did, and we're just going to go through this, Barbara. So how did blue zircon, as I told you before, in order to get blue zircon, you literally need to hit it with irradiation, 10 million electron volts to make that. To make blue zircon is not a natural zircon. It's not. It has to be treated. It has to go through something in order to do the increased life force. Next slide. You have a variety of different colors. Next slide. Every time I do this, Barbara, just go to the next. Look at that. Look at the color of that. Look at the difference of that. So the question is, who made the decision that gemstone that looks like that has that hardness, that has that molecular structure, which of course they didn't understand that, but they just felt it. They just knew. That was their understanding, that gemstone has that type of feeling. So next slide. Why can't you? Why can't this, all the gems, all the different colors that you see in zircon, why can't those represent whatever color you are? You're a different color. Everyone who's watching the show has different colors. I don't care if you're a white, black, different colors, different variations of who you are. If people can feel that that gemstone has those certain characteristics, why can't you? Think about that, and I'll give you some more to think about when you come back.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
All right, let's see. Barbara, bring it up again. Let's see where we're at. All right, we're trying to get this to technical. Okay, I think I can do it. All right. Okay, cool. So, as I was saying, got it, Barbara. So, but let's go back a little bit. Let's go back. Look at these different gemstones. These are all zircon. They all have they all have the same molecular structure, but the thing that makes them different is the thing that's inside of it. The thing that makes this different than this one is that there's some type of element inside of that gives off that color. And we have seen gemstones like topaz, like citrine, that are similar to that color, but they're different. So extrapolate that, make that analogy to yourself. How can you be similar? We are all human beings, but we're different. The things that inside of us make us different. So we what do I always say? We interact with the light in a different way. When I was homeless, I made a promise to God that if I ever got out of homelessness, and it didn't seem like it was ever going to happen, literally December 15th, that's when I made the promise to God. Homelessness really started for me in October. But by the time December, I had run out of options. I was done. I was waiting for whatever to happen, death. And I made a promise. I said, if I ever got out of this, I will spend the rest of my life helping people discover their value because of what I felt about myself. And when I say homeless, I have a friend that says, why do you always talk about being homeless? Because you don't have to be homeless, meaning without a home, to be homeless. I know people who are homeless in their spirit, which is even worse. When you're not comfortable in your own body, when you're not comfortable in who you are, when you're blue, not because you choose to be blue, because you're blue inside, and the world has told you that you're a rock. And when I said that to God, I had no idea of what I was going to do to help people do that. So to get a chance to literally speak as it says in As a Man Thinketh. I'm not going to quote it now because you guys should know it by now, but that part where it says very soon so altered has his mind become, that's what I'm talking about. It's the story. That's how you get there. That's how this manifests. That's why I'm here today to tell you that it's possible from wherever you are to where you want to be. It's possible. I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know your story. Just like when I look at a gemstone, before a diamond is cut to this is called the perfect diamond, 58 facets. This is what the perfect diamond looks like. But we all know, who've been watching, those of you who have been watching my show on a weekly basis already understand that that's not what it started out. So the gemstone, the diamantaire, the lapidary has to look at a gemstone and say, what is possible? So we went through turquoise, we did zircon. Now we're going to get to my favorite, one of my favorites, tanzanite. Tanzanite is supposed to be a linkage between the mind and the heart. It enhances spiritual connection, perception, adherence to the truth, compassionate self-expression. That's what that gemstone is supposed to represent. And what's interesting about tanzanite is that it's a young stone. So we have 3 stones for December. We have turquoise, which is extremely old as far as the first mined gemstone. Then we have zircon, which is the ultimate old because it's 4.5. They have literally found zircon that is 4.5 billion years old. And now we're talking about an extremely young stone in regards to gemological history. It was only found in 1967. Now, tanzanite is not actually, it's really a zodite. It's really a zodite. It should really be called blue zodite, but Tiffany, the company Tiffany, found that stone in 1967, and literally it was found in Africa, in Tanzania, which is the only place in the world you can find tanzanite. And it was an Tanzanian who found the stone. It had supposedly, that field had been hit by a lightning bolt, and you know the type of heat and temperature, the temperatures coming from, I think it's the temperature of a lightning bolt is more than the heat of the sun, hit those rocks, zodite rocks, and they turned it to tanzanite. They thought they had blue sapphire at first. And there's only it's so rare. Let me tell you how tanzanite comes about. Tanzanite comes about from galactic forces. I mean, literally, continents came together. Same thing that makes tanzanite is the kind of thing that made Mount Kilimanjaro, which sits in 3 miles from the only tanzanite fields in the world. So out of that, there's Mount Kilimanjaro. That's where it comes from. The only place in the world. This is what tanzanite looks like once it's heated, once it's treated, once it's cut. And this is what the people look like who dig for tanzanite. Tanzanite is just like any other gemstone. It's not just sitting there saying ready, looking beautiful. You have to find it. You have to discuss. And tanzanite is so rare that even in Tanzania, it's difficult. It's difficult to find it. People climb into holes like this to find tanzanite. And when you really think about it, is why would someone do that? Why would someone climb in a hole? You don't see him with North Face equipment on and high technology hats and stuff like this. No. Equipment like this, no. But he goes in there, I believe studying gemstones and seeing the relationship, I believe that there's a relationship between that gemstone. Those people who dig for gemstones, they go there because they believe. They believe in the story. They believe that they're going to be the one to find that gemstone, that diamond, that ruby, that emerald, that gold, that tanzanite. They found it. They believe in it. And that's why they go. How can you apply that in your own life? How can you apply what you need to do in your life with that type of perseverance? People ask me, and may I said this before, I don't know if you heard me, am I afraid? Am I scared? Yeah, a little. Yeah, this is the biggest speech of my life. Yep, sure am. I have to speak to people from a whole different continent, culture. They're brown like me, but I'm the only African American, at least speaking, of all those speakers for 3 days. Yeah. But because I believe in my message, I believe in what I have to say. I, in my own ways, understand what those miners go through, what the people throughout the whole jewelry chain have to go through. They have to believe. They have to believe in that you could take something that looks like that, something that looks like this. That's the end part of that. That's what tanzanite looks like when it's not heated. So when you just heat in this case, the top of it, it turns into that color. You have to see it. You have to understand what is your story. You can't, if you just looked at the end of that stone, all you see is a rock. You would walk right past that. But the people who understand it, the people who know what it is, the people who knew its potential, that Tiffany's invested millions of dollars. In fact, Tanzanite now has its own cartel or conglomerate called Tanzanite One, which is ran the same way, in a similar way that De Beers is run with diamonds. You have to believe in it. You have to believe in your story. Other than that, it's just a rock. And that's what so many of us feel. We feel like we're just rocks. We feel like we don't want to be rocks. We know deep down, we know that we're more. A good friend of mine, my best friend, and I were talking about dreams, and she was saying how you got to put work in it, and I said, yeah, people always say you got to work. That's true, but I think the work comes stronger when you have a story. It's easier to achieve the things that you want to achieve when you have a story, because as it says in As a Man Thinketh, very soon your mind is altered. So soon his mind is altered that the workshop can no longer hold him. Why? Because the story no longer matches with the things you're doing. When you want to change your life, in fact, tanzanite, supposedly the healing properties of tanzanite is it creates a circumstance where you present the things that's in the present, and you see how they blend and how they connect with the future. That's what tanzanite does. That's what it is. In fact, tanzanite is azotite, which is what tanzanite is. Was probably, well, actually, no, my bad. Zircon, those different colors. Zircon was probably one of the stones in the Bible. Tanzanite, what makes tanzanite special is that tanzanite is one of the few gemstones that's pleiochronic, meaning that not only can tanzanite change in a major way, but tanzanite is one of these stones that if you look at it in a certain angle, it changes. Don't we have so many people, ladies, I'm talking to you, that have all these different roles, all these different jobs, all these different hats you have to wear? How are you not like tanzanite? Beautiful, elegant, powerful. The linkage between the mind and the heart. If you're a mom, you're dealing with kids all the time, and you're creating that linkage. Mommy, I want to do this, and you know better. When we look at some of the enhanced spiritual perception, Moms, every mom in the world has that third eye. You know, that mom, you can see something before it happens. You know you're going to fall. No, I'm not. Boom. I told you. And I say it all the time, that gemstones is just, to me, God's way of practicing to what he ultimately wanted to create, especially in women. That's what it is. It's a symbol. It's a way. It's a bridge. As I always say, it's an inception point. It's that seed of understanding that how different you can be. Trying to bring up the next. Here we go. There you go. How can you have to see that? If you're that person holding that tanzanite, you have to see what it can become before it becomes. You have to understand, how do you maximize the color? You have to understand for yourself, how do you maximize the thing that you like to do? The thing, if you can cook and you're a great chef or great baker or great anything, and you decide to have that business, you have to see it. You have to get people to understand what this means, and you have to tell them the story. They have to understand the story, and that's how the story grows. That's why zircon can mean these things 5,000 years later, 4.4 billion years later. That's why turquoise can have those meanings, still have those meanings. Why can't that mean the same? Why can't that same concept work for us? And that's what I always started thinking. When I started thinking about gemstones and seeing it and just seeing my life, all I said to myself was, what do I believe I can do? What's possible? What's possible? So you go in your head, in your mind, and you play that game. You tell that story to yourself over and over and over again, that I know I might be this right now, but I can become this. I can become this. And the beautiful thing, the difference between gemstones and people, is the fact that this tanzanite, as beautiful it is, it will never be any other color. That's the color it is. And we all know that all tanzanite doesn't look like that. We even though we can say, we can use the characteristics of gemstones as an analogy for us, but we should always be aware that that it works even better with us, because we can change. We can change our story. We can change our molecular structure. We can change the things the way we think. That's why 30 years later, I'm here. And for those of you who go to church a lot more than me, I'm not saying totally is God. It's totally God. But what God told me is that this is what I've given you. When you were born, this is what I've given you. What are you going to do with it? The dream, the story makes you do the work. And once you have identified gem identification, once you have identified that you're turquoise, once you have identified that you're zircon, once you have identified that you're tanzanite, once you've identified those things, then you can create your story. Once you figure out the shape, the size, what you're about, how did you get there? What is the expectation? Once you understand the characteristics that you have, what is the expectation for the gemstone that you are? What is it? If you're a tanzanite, if I'm testing a tanzanite, here's my microscope, here's my polarimeter. If you're a tanzanite, if I have a tanzanite in my hand, there is a certain way it's supposed to react, the way it interacts with the light. How is what you're manifesting who you are? Is it really who you are? Because the closer you get to the story, the value of your story, telling that story, then you can more efficiently move into who you want to be. Until that happens, as the old saying goes, fake it till you make it. That's what jewelry imitations are about. There's lots of gemstones that mimic tanzanite. That's why I appraise gemstones, because people don't know the differences. People don't know. I have a whole, this is a whole chart. This is a whole chart. I know you can't see it, but all this is a whole chart of all the different properties that a gemstone has. That I am as a gemological appraiser, a storyteller, my responsibility is to know all those different changes. And if I have to know that, and I have tons of books about gemstones, how to identify it, then you being a true sentient being, you having a whole variety of different elements that make you who you are. There was a story I put on Facebook that I posted from another story about the first woman who ran a marathon, when people didn't believe that you could run a marathon, that women could run a marathon. How ridiculous is that? So what did she do? She knew that she could. She knew that, forget what they're talking about. I know that I am strong enough to run a marathon. So what did she do? She sneaked her way on. She put a hood on. She put her brother's clothes on. She wore her brother's shorts and shoes. And she tried to run, in a non-female way, I guess, until people started looking at the way she was running and they knew she was a woman. And then eventually they just came to her and said, girl, just keep running. We got you. And she was afraid that she was going to be arrested for being who she is. And she wasn't, because people cheered her. Why? Because they cheered her because she was in the race, that she was proving everybody. But the way it happened, she was in the race in her mind because she already knew the story that she was going to tell. She already knew the type of gemstone that she was, the way she was going to interact with the light. She believed. Just like if you buy a turquoise, you are buying it because someone may give you turquoise because they want you to be a better communicator. This would be a great Toastmaster stone. Maybe that's why Native Americans always, before, colonists came in, they were, not to say they didn't have wars and stuff, but there was more communication. There was a more more a relationship with the earth and the soil because of that communication. And the gemstone, that turquoise, was a representation of that. When you're looking at tanzanite, and tanzanite coming from not only tremendous forces, and it talks about the compassionate self-expression, to be able to have those type of forces create you, and in that you still have the beautiful sloping mountains in the plains and of the savanna, and the different animals that live there. And then you have tanzanite and zircon, different colors. Zircon, different colors, and beautiful. In fact, zircon is the only gemstone that mimics a diamond. That's why that's why cubic zirconia came around, because zircon can mimic a diamond, the brightness, the brilliance of a diamond. So I hope you got something out of it today. I hope that it helped you maybe put together what I talk about each week with different gems. And it's a journey each week for me, and I hope it is for you. So as always, my name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And this week, take time just to figure out what kind of gemstone you are. What do you wear? What color? What kind of gemstone you have chosen to be? And then take your gemstone, take your story, and go out in the world and tell them your story. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, fuera.